Hey, welcome into another episode of Halos in the Infield. It's the off-season episode with your host, Todd Fox, along with
Fernando, how's it going, everybody?
the Lone Star Halo. He's all over the place. He's like Carmen Sandiego, but the male version, the non-canceled version. So we'll see. Maybe he's got recasted because you never know exactly where he's at. Sometimes you see the New Jersey background. You may
Yeah.
have a Louisiana one. He's all over the place, people.
I'm currently in Memphis, so I
See?
didn't pull out like a Memphis background. I don't know what that would be. Maybe would it be like Beale Street?
It could be Bill Street or it could be a fat Elvis on a toilet.
Oh, there you go. Shout out to Graceland and
Honoring
half the people who live here.
honoring the king.
Exactly.
All right. So with that being said, we've got some Angels news to talk about. If you haven't heard, there's been quite a few trades and also pickups here by the Angels, and we're going to get into them. And we'll have Fernando start on that because there's been an awful lot of news and a lot of speculation too. So we're going to touch on all that in this episode, and then probably some more news and notes and more speculation on our point. So or our part. So let's get started, Fernando.
Well, let me first start off because I need to get better about this. Make sure to rate and review the podcast.
Ah.
Give us a 5-star review wherever you found this podcast. Tell your friends, check out the merch, follow us on all of our social media platforms, and make sure to follow our friends over at Catella Chronicles as well while you're at it.
Wow, you know what, dude? That is perfect because you summed everything up right away. That's something we should be saying every episode, every time we're on. So I appreciate that little reminder right there because obviously 5 stars helps us out big time. All right, Fernando. Well, let's take two. Let's start this one out, brother. What you got?
All right, so we haven't exactly done a formal recording since these moves really started. So it started off with the Angels signing Tyler Anderson to a 3-year deal. He's going to be getting just over $13 million a year. Now, let's start off by like your raw thoughts. So Tyler Anderson obviously had a stellar year with the Dodgers. I mean, it literally can be understated how solid of a year it was. Now, Tyler Anderson has been around the block for a little while. The Dodgers weren't his first team. I believe he was with Pittsburgh as well. Let me see. Yeah, so Colorado, Pittsburgh. He was with the Giants. He was with Seattle, and then he was with the Dodgers last year. Now he has a career. Where'd he go? A career 4.16 ERA, which is serviceable. It's not stellar. It's not bad. It's serviceable. But last year, he had a 2.57 ERA with the Dodgers. He also had 15 wins and 5 losses. He started 28 games last year and pitched 178.2 innings. So he was dependable. He was reliable. He went out there every few days, took the ball for the Dodgers, and gave some pretty lengthy outings if you're going to have 178 innings pitched.
I agree. The one thing I'll say about that, if you want my raw thoughts on it right away, is I like the numbers 15 and 5. The 257 ERA is, I think, a product of Mark Pryor and the Dodgers Stadium. It's a pitcher's ballpark. I like it. The only thing that is kind of got me a little, perplexed a little bit is it's another lefty to add to the rotation. It's not all bad, but I think if he can get out of there with an ERA of 3.54 with us, I think it's a win. Anything over that, anything over, maybe close to a 4 is not good. I'd like to see him pitch at a 3.50 and below, but 3 again, I'll take that. He's a serviceable pitcher, and like you said, how many pitchers have the Angels in the Joe Madden era, the last part of Mike Scioscia, have pitched over 150 innings, or 120 innings even. So a guy that we're getting that you said is very dependable, pitched almost 180 innings. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's overall a winning pitcher. His career is 44 and 43, so not by much. We're essentially talking about a 500 pitcher.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. He doesn't have to come here to Anaheim and be the dominant guy, at least in year one. Maybe if Shohei Ohtani gets traded or becomes a free agent and leaves, then maybe we can have a situation talk more about him potentially needing to be an ace if, guys like Patrick Sandoval or Reed Detmers can't step up in that mythical situation. But what I will say is at next season, he really just needs to be a number 2, number 3, number 4 kind of guy. This is assuming no other deals are made. Now, you and I talked for a couple hours yesterday off record, and we had talked about the fact that now this is going to be a very, very lefty dominated starting rotation.
Mm-hmm.
You have Jose Suarez, Patrick Sandoval, Reed Detmers, Tyler Anderson, and then you have guys like, Kai Bush who are waiting in the wings. So you not only are going to have a log jam coming up in the organization now, because as I stated, Kai Bush, and then in terms of right-handers, you have guys like Sam Bachman, you have Chase Silseth, you had Jonathan Diaz, but for whatever reason, they non-tendered him, so he's no longer in the organization currently. Hopefully he comes back on a minor league deal because I like what he brought to the table.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is you're starting to have a situation where we're going to start slowly having a logjam at the starting pitching position. Now, that's something we have not been able to say in Anaheim for a while.
Yeah.
The other advantage, you have Griffin Canning potentially coming back for 3 weeks before he gets hurt again. So, you never know what's going to happen with him. Maybe he gives you 6 weeks instead of 3 weeks. But the point is, Canning's always a guy who's had potential. Because of his injuries, he's never really been able to tap into that potential, unfortunately. And then, of course, you have the guys like Chris Rodriguez, who I think is best off as a bullpen arm, but he is technically a starter. So,
yeah, you have an awful. I can't remember a time in the Angels' history. Even you can go to the glory days, to where you had a number of pitchers ready to come up. To me, it was like if you needed a pitcher, you went out and you got a Kelvin Escobar, you got a Bartolo Colon, you got pitchers like that. They really have not spent the time or the energy on getting pitchers to develop. And the names that you just put out there is you basically have put out with all those pitching names, you can fill 3 rotations full of starting pitchers. And that's crazy to think about, that these are major league ready pitchers that can make a difference and can stay on a rotation. Some may be more healthier than others, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I've never seen it to where you can just pick from the minors and interchange and still have competitive baseball being played at the starting pitcher spot. So that's a bonus. But like you said, I don't think they're done. If they go left-handed, like we talked off air, and you said that wouldn't be a bad thing. However, it's how they can pitch, and there's different dynamics now without the shift. And, so it's going to be a little more challenging for these, left-handed pitchers going against maybe a right-handed dominated lineup. So we'll see. But, I mean, the potential's there for a lot of good. And Justin Anderson fits that mold.
Tyler Anderson.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I call him Justin. But I think, too, serving him as a third or fourth would be great. Take the pressure off of him. He's going to be the new guy on the team. 39 million isn't 89 million, so there's not that kind of pressure. But the fact that he's going to be making more than most of the pitchers on the squad, I think not asking him to do too much if you anchor the rotation with Ohtani and Sandoval up top.
I think this is a decent signing. I mean, 13 million in the grand scheme of things isn't crazy. You know what? He had a great season, but the way baseball is nowadays, you kind of have to pay for the season that the guy had before. That's really just kind of what sports is turning into, but especially baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a decent sign. You know what? You're all in on this guy. The problem with the Angels has been that they've been giving out a lot of these one-year deals, these prove-it deals, and the problem with the Angels, they're not a prove-it type of team. They don't consistently get these guys who, were good or who have potential. They sign them and then they succeed here. That does not work in Anaheim, and it really hasn't as far as starting pitching for a while. It's kind of worked with guys in the bullpen, and there's guys who they get lucky with, like Parker Bridwell, if you remember him in 2017, was great. And then they brought him back, and he wasn't very good, and he just kind of fizzled out eventually. Mm-hmm. And then bullpen guys. You had guys like Blake Parker or Hansel Robles or David Hernandez. Those guys were good. They were picked out of the waiver wire, came here, given an opportunity, they did well, and then they were either flipped or just they got rid of them eventually. So I don't know, man. Pitching is just so difficult today. With the way baseball is, it's almost like running backs in the NFL. It's just a revolving door. You get lucky, and sometimes these pitchers catch lightning in a bottle and they figure it out, or sometimes they're one-hit wonders. They get paid and they fizzle into irrelevance.
Yeah, I think the days are gone back in the day when you'd have a Jim Abbott, Mark Langston, Chuck Finley hang out for about 5 to 6 seasons. I think asking a rotation of dominant guys like Glavin Glavin Mulder, Glavin Smoltz, and I'm forgetting the third pitcher that they had back in the day, Braves. Huh?
Greg Maddux?
Yeah, Maddox. There you go. When you have guys like that, I think the last one to do it was Hudson, Mulder, and Zito. But when you can hold on to 3 dominant pitchers like that, it's very hard to do in this league. Guys are, like you said, revolving doors. It's hard to keep a rotation together like that. But when you can, it's something special. And there's a chance here that we may have something here special. We might be able to have Ohtani long term with Sandoval long term and Kai Bush, or it could be Silseth or stuff like that. I'm kind of, being optimistic for once and thinking this thing could last for a while, that Perry's building a good foundation of pitching, and then it's just going to have to fill out with the lineup and the bench and the depth. I have faith in what he's done with the bullpen. It seems like, the arms that comes up, because like you said, they're getting away from those 1-year deals. They're kind of investing more in long-term guys or guys through the system. So it's definitely a different culture around here. And will it continue moving forward? Will we continue to get this building blocks? Because it just feels like there's something brewing with the Angels. In a good
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about like how we feel these moves are going to pay out when we get to the others, because this is just move number 1. But what I will say is that this is a good move. Will 13 million be a little bit of an overpay? Perhaps, but 13 million can also be a bargain if he even has a shred of the season he had last year. I mean, if we're talking about 12 wins, 8 losses, I'll take that with like a 3.6, 3.7 ERA, and he was our number 4 guy. I'll take that. Even if he was our number 2 guy, you know what? I'll take that. He's going out there. He's staying healthy. He's giving you a chance to win. And nowadays, wins and losses really aren't a good way to determine a good quality pitcher. Look at Nolan Ryan. Did he ever lead the league in wins?
He may have like once or twice.
He was always on crappy teams. You know what I mean? The California Angels weren't very good when he was here. I think the Mets were good, but he was just starting his career. He didn't really get a pitch an insane amount in New York. He came to Anaheim. And then, in Houston, I think they were good for like 1 year maybe. And besides that, they kind of sucked. And then when he went to the Rangers, they kind of sucked. So the point is that wins and losses don't really matter. Look what happened with Sandoval last year. If you look at his win-loss total, you're like, dude, this guy sucks. And then you dive into his ERA and innings pitched, and you're like, okay, well, clearly this guy just didn't get any help.
Yeah, his strikeouts were high. The guy pitched his ass off. He just got no run support.
Yeah, almost just comically got a lack of run support.
It is, and like you said, I think didn't he have a better ERA than our boy that just got signed? Because I think he was sub 2 as well, 250, right?
I'll look that up real quick.
Sandoval was on fire last year. I know that. Like he pitched to like 4, I believe, 1-0 losses. So that should tell you something. And he was pitching into the 7th inning. And credit to him, I think I only saw him get really frustrated twice, where he walked off really pissed off, that you could tell he was mad at the hitting. Most of the time you saw him upset, he was mad at himself giving up a run or 2 runs here and there. But for the most part, like he kept it together. He was definitely a pitcher that could walk into the locker room and throw shit, and you couldn't like laugh at him. You couldn't say, hey, that he's wrong for that. You'd be like, yeah, he has every right to be as pissed off as he was.
So he was 6-9 with a 2.91 ERA, so not quite as good as Tyler Anderson's 2.57. But I mean, once you're in the twos, we're comparing, you know, apples to oranges.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess that's probably a bad comparison, but we're comparing like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. I mean, it's a preference at that point. Yeah, 2.5 is better than 2.91, but are we really going to complain about 2.91? Most people might prefer Coke, but if you go to a restaurant, they're like, we only have Pepsi. Most people are like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my point there. I'm not going to argue who's the better two ERA pitcher. I'll take either one, to be honest.
Yeah.
Obviously Anderson's numbers look better because he was on a more competitive team. His team gave him more run support. But Patrick Sandoval pitched 148.2 innings. That's also not bad at all. I mean, he had a very serviceable season. And overall, he's a 3.70 ERA player. He's had a pretty good career.
Yeah, it just hasn't translated wins and losses. If I'm mistaken, I think he's like something like 20 games under 500 as a starter.
He's 10-24.
Yeah. So he's something. Yeah, he hasn't exactly
0.94 winning percentage, Doug.
But if you look back though, that's the funny thing. Chuck Finley, I think, is the all-time wins leader for the Angels. But if you look at
150 wins,
yeah,
and I think Jared Weaver's like 149 or so.
Yeah, he fell like one or two short. But Chuck, it's funny, his career, that's why I think he's Sandoval's Chuck 2.0, because if you look at Chuck's career, the first couple seasons, he didn't exactly rack up the wins. He came out of the bullpen, and then he started as a starter, and he suffered two really sucky years the same way Sandoval did with the Angels, where he just couldn't get the W's, but he was getting the innings, he was getting the strikeouts. I think eventually Sandoval is going to get to Chuck's status to where he's racking up double-digit wins every year. I think he'll get there. And it might be this season upcoming. Just give him 3 or 4 runs, and I think he and it could be the same thing with our new acquisition. He could come out there the same way and start getting the W's just the way he did with the Dodgers with some better run support. And we'll go over that too, like you said, talking about the lineup later, but that plays a big part into it because again, you could watch Angels baseball all season. We just said it like a broken record. Boy, if you just give these pitchers a run or two more, imagine the record of the team and the record of these starting pitchers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all we can do is hope. But overall, I like the Anderson acquisitions. Do you have anything else about this one before we move to the next one?
No, I think we covered most of it. Yeah, I like Justin now in the rotation.
Okay, so Gio Urshela was the next move that was made. I mean, it was the next day?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was 2 days later. Anderson was signed on the 16th, and then the Urshela move was announced on the 18th. And Gio Urshela was a infielder who was brought over from the Minnesota Twins, and we gave up a pitcher named Alejandro Hidalgo.
And then we gave up Elvis. Or
that was for Hunter.
Oh, that was for Hunter. Oh, yeah, my bad.
That's another one later.
Yeah, this one, look, this one still is, the jury's out on this one. I like his numbers. Was it 13 homers, 64 or 74 RBI, something like that? 275 hitter, something like that.
4 RBIs, yeah.
Yeah, he's decent. We know that. He has a history with the Yankees, history with the Twins. Decent infielder. There's nothing, a lot of people looked at it and said, oh, it's a depth move. Now it could be a starting move. I think what you said off air, and I think the same, is this is got to be a move to set up another move. Because where he's at right now is like, okay, there's a log jam in the infield. I do like the acquisition. Don't get me wrong. But I'm right now perplexed on where exactly you're going to put him because I don't see him as a platoon guy. I don't feel like some of the early writers that wrote about this move saying, "Oh, well, Rendon, it'll be when Rendon
gets hurt."
Yeah, gets hurt, platoon, whatever. I don't see them platooning Rendon. I think you have to put Rendon out there almost at least if you're playing 7 games a week, 5 of the 7, or if you're playing 6 games a week, 4 of the 6 or 5 of the 6. I don't see him platooning, dude.
I don't either. You pay Rendon way too much money to platoon him. Now, it's a little different. Maybe if this is like the last year or two of his contract and he's getting up there in age, he's like 36, 37, so you need to take him off his feet a little bit. That's different. But we're still talking about a guy who's what, 31 years old, maybe 32 for Rendon. He still has 4 more years, I believe, on his deal. And he has not really earned the $90 million he's gotten in his first 3 seasons because he's been injured.
Mm-hmm.
You can say whatever you want about, well, he had a solid 2020. He wasn't paid to have a solid 2020. He was paid to have an MVP caliber season. He got some MVP votes, great, but it was a shortened season. If we're not going to count the Dodgers or we're going to put an asterisk next to them, we're going to put an asterisk next to the 2020 Anthony Rendon because that's ultimately what the entire season for 2020 deserves. 2021 hardly played. 2022 hardly played. I'll give Rendon a little bit of credit because he came back at the very end to serve his suspension, and you know what? He didn't have to do that. He could have been selfish and been like, "Nah, I'm good, man. I'm going to hang out here in my house in Texas."
Quick,
or whatever.
quick question on that one. That's a very good point. To you, was that the first time because of the way he's spoken out about not caring about the fans, not caring about what people think? Do you think that's the first time that he's put this team ahead of everybody and including himself by making that move?
It's really unfair to put that kind of stuff on Anthony Rendon. Like, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, you guys do it all the time. What I always say about our podcast and our page is that we take what fans are feeling at that exact moment of time, unfiltered, and throw it into the universe. That's why a lot of people like our page. How we feel is how they feel. And we just throw it out there. And they're like, this is what I feel right now. Mm-hmm. So we clown on Rendon a lot. So this was definitely encouraging to see a team first mindset. I think he is a very team oriented guy. He seems to have the guys laughing when he's in the dugout. I mean, the guy hit a left-handed home run to lighten the mood of a game that realistically, we were killing. Was it the Rays?
Yeah, it was the Rays. We were blowing them out.
Was that the day that Walsh got the
cycle?
Cycle? Was it that day?
I think so, because they were just hitting everything. Like, no matter what they pitched, it just didn't matter.
It feels like a different lifetime ago.
It does.
So I don't remember who was against, but yeah.
And he went over the. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Oh. No, go ahead. You're good.
I was just gonna babble. So.
Go babble on.
Okay. So I mean, I was just gonna say it's really unfair to just assume that Rendon wants to sit out and that he wants to be unproductive and that he just wants to milk the cash cow that's been already, at least for bad contracts. So, like I said, I'm all about giving the devil his due when it's earned. And I know you're the same way. We'll call people out, we'll call the team out on BS. But when a player or the team or even Artie Moreno does something positive, we're always first in line to praise the move. So the fact that Rendon did come back, against the odds, because he had a season-ending injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came back against the odds, and he even played, 2 games?
Yeah, he actually got in the lineup for at least, I think it was 6 to 8 at bats. So that's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know what, man? I'll tip my cap to him, and I'll say that hopefully this was a good momentum shift for him. Hopefully this kind of gave him that little bit of taste of competitiveness. Not because the team was, competitive at the last series of the year, but because he competed against the odds. He was told one thing, and he had obviously something inside of him click where he was like, you know what, I can do this. I can come back.
Yeah, and I think he won over some fans there towards the end when they got into that fight with the Mariners. He was first out of the dugout. He didn't have to be there. He had a cast on his freaking arm and swung with his cast. So I think that, when we did the post game and we did other stuff after that, people kind of the tide kind of changed a little bit. And I think that's what is frustrating to Angel fans is they want to see a little bit more emotion out of him. They'd like to see him give an interview or two. I think this team has too many guys that just either don't talk English and don't want to do an interview, or they just don't want to do an interview. Trout's a very quiet guy. Tani has too many cameras on him as it is. I wouldn't expect him to give an interview, even if he was fluent or comfortable speaking English, like most of these players are. They're comfortable in their native language, and that's understandable. But my point being is, I think they just need more vocal stars in this team. And I think Rendon, if he were to turn the page and have a good season, not even an MVP season, let's just say he puts up 25 home runs and 89 RBIs. I think every Angel fan would sign up for that. And if he were to do that and maybe, hit a game winner, a walk-off, and just say a few things to the fans and tip his cap every now and then, this fan base would go gaga over that.
Yeah, I mean, God, give me a 280 hitting season. I mean, that's not incredible, and you're not getting paid about 280. But if you're going to give me 160 games, and you're going to bat 280, and give those other stats you're talking about with good defense, because he's good defensively.
Oh yeah,
I'll take that. I'll take that any day. And I get it. There's different ways to lead. But the thing is that the Angels haven't had a vocal leader. There's a lot of these other teams that do. And I know that was one of Perry's big things this offseason. He wants to bring personality back into the clubhouse. Now, one way to do that is by, giving some of these young guys a shot, because the young players are much different than, even guys who are like the middle of their career, like the Trouts and the Rendones of the world. Because 10 years ago when Trout was coming up, rookies weren't supposed to talk. They were supposed to come up and play, and that was it. And that's how baseball and really sports was forever. It wasn't until maybe the last 5 or 6 years, really in all sports, that we've kind of started to see personalities start to flash through. You had it with football for a while with guys like, Terrell Owens and stuff, but they were the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, they were more me first. Yeah, they're me first and team first.
Exactly. And now we're in a situation where these young guys, a lot of young Latin guys, and, you're starting to see some young black guys. And obviously you have the guys from Asia who are coming over. There's some flair now in the game. There's a little more, what's the word, cultural inclusion. And that's making the game of baseball a little more exciting to watch. Then obviously you have these young teams like the Padres, who a lot of baseball fans like to see, because they have these young, foreign players who bring energy. And that's kind of the new age of baseball that we've seen over the last 5 years. And, I'm here for it. This team hasn't really had that. You saw it a little bit when Adele and Brandon Marsh were playing together.
Mm-hmm.
And you started to bring the other young guys in. You see it with Suarez and some guys like that. But I really think that some personality will really go a long way to helping this organization.
Yeah, it's a let the kids play movement, and like you said, the Padres, a few other teams, the Red Sox from a couple years ago. If you're out there, it gets not only the American-born players hyped up, because when you look at the Padres, I mean, every player on that team was going crazy and having a good time, and that's what you like to see. The Phillies were a little bit like that. So if you get everyone, pumped up, you get rid of the whole unwritten rule kind of BS, the whole this is your grandfather's baseball. If you lose that kind of aspect, I think it's good for baseball. Baseball's got to change with the times. It's beginning to with some of the rule changes, trying to get the game a little faster. But going back to Urshela, where does he fit in here? I think that one is still a question mark in my book. I like this signing. If he's depth, I don't think it's a good move. I think he's got to play almost every day, and but where do you put him? And so I think it's an incomplete for me. If I'm going to give a grade, if you're giving me a grade on Anderson, I'm going to say that's a B+, A- type move. But on Urshela, I have to have that at incomplete because we just don't know where he fits yet.
Yeah, now he's primarily been a third baseman for the bulk of his career. He had a couple games at shortstop. But I think I remember reading a tweet, I think it might have been by Ken Rosenthal, saying that Perry says that Urshela's second best position is first base. So if that's the case, Maybe it's a first base move, and obviously that kind of adds another ripple to this. The organization isn't sold on Walsh. We have that in good authority. Why? Who knows? Maybe it's because of his injury. Maybe they think it's a lot more severe. Maybe it's because of his inconsistencies. He's really hot and then he's really not. Maybe it's because they truly don't think that he has what it takes to hit left-handed pitching.
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure. The way I view it, if that is the case, then Walsh is probably a trade chip.
Yeah, because had they not made that other move with the Brewers, I would have thought, if Urshela's going to move to first, maybe Walsh goes to right or left.
Yeah. Yeah, but obviously then the other move took place.
Correct.
But Urshela is a solid big league player. So he was worth 3.1 wins above replacement last year. He took a 501 at bat, so it's a large sample size. Like you said earlier, he hit 13 home runs. He batted 285, and he got 64 RBIs. So, if he's going to be batting seventh or eighth for you, that's not a bad place to be. He has a 338 on base percentage, and his career is 321. So he gets on base. He takes the walks. So this is a good move in that sense. They gave up almost nothing to get him. They gave up a minor league pitcher named Alejandro Hidalgo, and he is a career 4.64 pitcher in the minors. And he was born in 2003. So he's obviously very, very early on in his career. I mean, he hasn't made it beyond Inland Empire yet, which is low A. So we're talking about a guy who's 4 years away. Three or 4 years, potentially. And that's if all goes well. But obviously, like we already said, we're going to have a situation where we have a little bit of a logjam brewing in terms of starting pitching and in terms of the bullpen. So you can afford to get rid of some guys like this, even for Gio Urshela, who's only under team control for 1 more year.
The one thing that just snaps out at me, it's not even the home runs or the RBIs, it's the 285. Coming off the last couple seasons where this team, if you got a hitter over 249, you're throwing a parade. 285, your on base percentage, like you're talking about, walks. I think that's going to play into the category of a guy who's familiar with him, and Thames it is, the hitting coach, and working walks, being patient. He's trying to get that New York mentality on the West Coast, which I hope happens here. More trouble on the bases, like Gooby always says. You want to keep pressuring the pitchers, something that we didn't do as an organization. So yeah, if this dude's playing every day, 285, obviously things like that, I'm all in.
So Baseball Reference projects that he's going to get about 520 plate appearances. They're projecting he's going to hit 14 home runs, so he'll have 1 more than last year, 60 RBIs. They're projecting him to bat 271 with a 320 on base percentage. I'll take that in a heartbeat.
I agree. Give me that right now.
So, and he's only 31.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be 31. So, he's about to hit free agency. So this is a prove-it year for him.
Mm-hmm.
And, even who knows, maybe he has a solid season. And then maybe you talk about extending him to, a 2-year deal maybe. That way you can give guys like Neto, potentially Jeremiah Jackson, some time to brew and see what happens. And that's assuming, he goes to shortstop or second base. If he is going to first base, well, then that's a completely different situation. But like you said, this is definitely a question mark move, not in the sense of it's a bad move. I think, if we're looking at it for what it is, and if you're truly going to use him every day, this is a B plus move. But, you're going to have to find a consistent home for him, because he's proven throughout his career that if he gets consistent at bats, he'll be a productive major league player. And that's what the Angels need. You know what? I said last year during the offseason that the Angels need to stop getting the big name and start getting the right names. And this is an example of the Angels not getting the big name. This is them getting the right name. This isn't the sexy move. This isn't Carlos Correa. This isn't Xander Bogaerts. But this is a guy who's going to help your team progress in a positive direction. Because we've already talked about Tyler Anderson, and Gio Urshela, who combined are over 7 win above replacement players. And we haven't even talked about Hunter Renfroe yet. So being conservative, these two guys alone are going to give you about 6 wins. And that's being conservative.
And it's actually, like I'm glad you brought that up, because not only is it not overshooting and getting the Carlos Correas, which may or may not be the right moves for this particular organization at this particular time, because we're being in flux with the potential trade, or not potential trade, potential sell, and all the other stuff that's going on along with Artie. But also, we're not bargain basement shopping, so we're not going with the players that you talked about earlier in the show.
Victor Fowler.
Yeah, where you're just getting guys who it's not a prove it a contract, it's a can you still do it, and we get those kind of contracts. So I do like this, because we aren't, we're not giving up a lot, and we're not giving up the future, and we're still getting a solid player for at least a season. And then we have our option of, hey, do we want to keep this guy a part of the Angels? Did he fit in really good? Or is this a guy that's just going to be a stepping stone, like you said, for Neto and other guys in the organization?
And either way, so be it.
Yeah, because we're helping him and he's helping us.
Exactly. He's going to want to come here and he's going to want to prove, going into his first free agency, that he has what it takes to get a big contract, right? That's the goal for everybody.
Correct.
So, we'll see what happens with him. And that's the same thing with our next move. I believe Hunter Renfroe is also a free agent after this year. Mm-hmm. Now, Hunter Renfroe was acquired from the Milwaukee Brewers, and we gave up Jansen Junk, Elvis Paguro, and Adam Seminaries. So we're essentially talking about 2 mid pitchers, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard that term, Todd, since you're a grandpa, but mid is what people my age or high school or college people say for average.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know. I'm educated. Stop mansplaining. No.
Oh, here we go with this shit again.
No, I think. Look, Elvis left the building for me last year. I didn't have any faith in him. He was a wild pitcher with a lot of potential. I think Jason Junk is another guy that was in the Yankee system. A lot of potential, but couldn't find the plate at times. It's time we pass guys like that along. Now, I don't have the scouting report on the other prospect that we sent towards them, but hey, Milwaukee got 3 pitchers out of it. Maybe they can resurrect one of those guys, and the future comes through as well with a prospect. But I think for what we got, Renfroe, if you're going to read his numbers off, is very solid.
Yeah, so I remember Hunter Renfroe as a Padre. His defense back then was not the best. People claim that his defense has gotten a lot better. He always had a strong arm. Yep. We're talking like a Yasiel Puig type of arm in the outfield. And say what you want about Puig's playing style, but the guy had a great arm. Mm-hmm. Same with Cole Calhoun, great arm. So Hunter Renfroe is going to give you that same kind of thing. Seems like he's kind of become more accurate with his arm, which is good. The Angels have not had the best defensive success in the outfield over the last couple seasons. You had Justin Upton, who was a defensive liability. Obviously, Trout's good when healthy, but he's not great at defense anymore. And I think the health is one of his biggest issues. Mm-hmm. And then you have Joe Adell, who will either rob a home run in between his legs while doing a cartwheel, or he's going to miss an easy pop-up. There's no in between with Joe Adell. He makes a stellar play where he makes some amazing diving catch, or it's just
you hold your breath every time the ball's headed his way. Even on a ground ball, because I've seen a couple ground balls headed his way and they go under his legs. And I'm like, shit, there's a triple.
Yeah, because at least with Joe Adell, whenever that ball's hit to him, it's going to be something worth garnering a reaction. It's either going to be, yes, what a catch, or it's going to be,
Yeah, it's one of those where you're at the stadium and you see like if you hit a ball up the center field and let's just say there's a runner at first base and you hit one into center field, Trout's on his way to get it, and I look towards the runner to see if the advanced runner gets to third. You know what I mean? Like I'm watching if there's going to be potentially Trout trying to gun him out at third, or if the runner's going to be able to make it to third, whatever, like that. When it's Adele, I caught myself watching him the entire time, not focusing on the base runners. I'm like, okay, is he going to safely secure the ball and throw the ball to the correct cutoff guy?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what you said. So let's get to talking about Hunter Renfroe and his numbers for last year. So we had 474 at bats, so not as much as Urshela. 121 hits, hit 29 home runs, batted 255, 72 RBIs, and had non-base percentage of 315.
Okay.
So he gets on base. His batting average isn't the sexiest, but I mean, it's not like Justin Upton's had some amazing batting averages his last couple seasons with the Angels.
Yeah,
So
228 would have been great for Justin Upton.
yeah, there you go. The fact that he got 72 RBIs last year, I'll take that. Getting on base, 31% of the time, I'll take that too. We just need somebody to come over here, provide us some above average defense. You don't have to make any sexy catches, but make the routine plays, which it seems like Renfroe has done a better job of. Hold the runners from advancing from, second to third, which he has the arm to do that. And he has the potential to hit 30 homers a season. I think he's going to be more in the 25 ballpark, but heck, I'll take that too. It's a good move. Like you said, you gave up 3 pitchers, 2 of which just have potential, and then one of them was a minor leaguer. So I think Jansen Junk one day will be a solid major league pitcher. We just, don't have the time for that right now. We need to prove to Ohtani that we're trying to win right now if you want to keep him long term. And if he does leave, well, you need to be able to win. So
you plug these 2 guys in the lineup. Like you said with Urshela, you could have him around 7 or 8. You could do the same thing with Hunter Renfroe. Hunter Renfroe wasn't batting 1 through 5 in the Brewer lineup. Maybe every now and then, but he was more towards the back of the lineup. No pressure on him. He was shifted on. I think when I did the show with Catella Chronicles, they said he was shifted on over 400 times. So you're not going to have that luxury with him. So you'd imagine his average would go up, and he's probably an everyday hitter. He's not going to platoon too much. Adele's going to have to steal at bats from him with his, resurgence or good play. So, it's a plus because he's going to push Adele to make the most of every at bat that he can get. Renfroe's a proven starter. Now you have an outfield with Taylor Ward, who's pretty decent and who's in right now, or I think he's going to move to left. And Renfroe, it's one of those 2.
Renfroe's going to right.
Yeah, Renfroe's going to right. You got Ward in left, which is pretty decent, and you got Trout in center. You could platoon with or have defensive substitutions later on. So, I mean, I like the move. I like the move a lot. And like you said, I'm on board with a 25 to 80 RBI type guy, or 25 homers to 80 RBIs, maybe if he hits 265, close to 270. Give me that all day because, again, that's an upgrade completely. If you look at it real quick, if Ward can give you what he did last year and a little bit better with, without the injuries and without the big time slump, if he hits you about 25 to 27, if Trout gives you a full season, he'll hit 50. And then you look over there at Renfroe, he should hit you at least 25. You're talking about 100 home runs just in your outfield.
He's projected to have 25 home runs this year. He's also projected to bat 247, have an on-base percentage of 308 with 73 RBIs. Once again, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that. It's more production than we've had recently in the outfield. Now, unfortunately, with the acquisition of Mickey Moniak last year, I think that Adele's the odd man out still. I think he's asked out. And I think we're in a situation where we really legitimately might be talking about Joe Adele as a trade piece. It's really tough because if you ask me, for 100 straight days, half of those days, I'm going to tell you that we should move on and trade Adele. The other half of those days, I'm going to be like, you know what, maybe we should give him a chance. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to get that chance this year, assuming there's no major injuries. I don't project Trout to play more than like 140 games this year. He's had these small minor injuries that take him out for about 20 to 30 games a year. And I just think that Trout's at that age, unfortunately, where that's going to be the case. You have Moniak, who's probably your fourth outfielder. You have Taylor Ward, who hopefully he doesn't run into any cement walls this year. And then now you have Renfro. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be really, really hard for Joe Adell to get some playing time. And ultimately, if there's a deal for him, I think the Angels move on from him and they package his with maybe a Suarez, maybe a Walsh. There's just a long list of guys right now who you can actually move on from. And the organization might actually be better for the right pieces.
I believe I believe you're right. I mean, they have this guy has been rumored to be moved a lot. He's been getting a lot of people like myself feel that he had the raw end of the deal. Like last year, like this year, if he puts the team together, you get more depth. I don't think you could look at it and say, well, we have the luxury of sending him, or keeping him on the roster. We should send him up and down till he finds his way. I think they sent him up and down too much last year with a mediocre roster. Like if you look at what he did last year, let's see, 2002 or 2022 stats, 268 at bats, only 22 runs scored. He had just 60 hits, 224 average, 8 home runs and 27 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. You look at Mickey Moniak right now. Last year, 125 at bats, 22 runs, so less than half of the at bats that Adell had. He had the same amount of runs. He had 39 hits compared to Adell's 60. He had 8 home runs and 20 RBI, so nearly the same stats all the way through. 5 stolen bases, but he had a 312 average combined with the Phillies and Angels. So he actually hit really good with the Angels when he came up. My question to you is, if you're going to go with Adell or Moniak, which one do you go with? Are you sold on Moniak just getting his opportunity with a new team? Like basically, let me rephrase that. Do you think a change of scenery helped Moniak get in? Because we saw him make strides before he got hurt again. Because he was doing really good. He was probably one of the Angels' hottest hitters for a 2-week period. Do you think that change of scenery is going to get Moniak to where the Phillies thought he was going to be? And do you think Adell getting a change of scenery can get him where he's got to be?
I don't think Moniak's ever going to be what the Phillies expect him to be. I mean, he was the first overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's ever going to be what you expect out of a pick like that. But I do think he might be able to be a Taylor Ward type guy so maybe that change of scenery does help him. Maybe Mickey Moniak's the piece that gets traded. But at the end of the day, one of those guys is the odd man out. And both of those guys would probably benefit from some consistent playing time. I think Adell probably has more trade value at the end of the day. But I mean, both of the guys have been streaky. Both of the guys have shown flashes, but ultimately neither of the guys have really been able to translate it to any long-term success. But we'll see. I mean, Perry's definitely not done. These aren't going to be the 3 biggest moves by the end of the season. The end of the offseason, sorry. I don't think the Angels are going to make much of a splash anymore in terms of free agents. I think Tyler Anderson was the big guy in terms of free agency, but there'll be a couple other trades that are made. They're going to be running out of budget pretty soon here. Artie never really gets too close to the luxury tax, and we're already on pace to have the highest opening day payroll in Angels history. So he's going a little beyond probably what he would have liked, but I think he's trying to appeal to some new buyers. So that's probably why. But, assuming there isn't a new ownership group who's already taking form and gives Artie the green light to just keep on spending to get the team to contention, I think Perry will have to get smart with his moves as he starts running out of capital.
Let's just see the roster goes in the way it is right now. Obviously, there's still a lot more changes that are going to take place.
Yeah.
Do you which one do you keep up, since we're on this Moniak and Adell thing real quick before we get back to Hunter, but which one would you give the nod to, like, as far as like if you had to pick one to be on your opening day roster, which one would it be?
Man, that's really tough. I'd have to look at what Moniak's numbers are like in AAA, but the thing with Joe Adell is, as of right now, he's been a 4A player.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll send him down to AAA, and he's doing pretty good there. It looks like he has his confidence back. He's hitting dingers. He's, You know, he's playing some average defense, and then you call him up to the show, and it's like, duh, how do I make that catch again?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, so it really depends. I'd have to look at Moniak's AAA numbers, but assuming he's probably along the same lines, which I would imagine he probably is if the Phillies moved away from him, I don't know. We're essentially talking about those same player
Yeah, I mean, though Moniak's numbers, his averages are only around hovering around 250, 240.
in AAA.
Yeah, in AAA, so it's not like he was tearing it up. Like at least in the stats that we have, as far as with our boy Adele, he did a lot better in when he was down there in AAA. Like he was tearing it up close to 400 at times. My only thing with Moniak is if I would probably start him on the major league roster only for the fact that if he's going to come in, he's we trust his glove a little bit better and the speed factor. I mean, he could come on and pinch run, and he's smarter on the bases. So many times last year we saw Adele just make boneheaded moves where he ignored a go home sign and stopped, or he waited too long on a fly ball to judge if it was going to fall or not. Getting into just stupid pickles. He took a lot of guys off. He took himself and us out of innings. So I would have to go with that. Unless Adele's had a hell of an off season, a great spring training, I would have to give the nod to Moniak.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of those flip of the coin moves, to be honest with you. I don't really think there's a right answer there, just because Joe Adele needs consistent time up in the majors, but I don't think the Angels can give him that. So, I think you just have to find a suitor for him who's, you're going to be able to get a piece that might be able to help and go from there. Maybe it's a team like Cleveland or Oakland or Tampa Bay who's able to develop these kind of guys. Now, while I'm on the topic of Tampa Bay, there's a lot of Angels fans, Randy being one of them, who wants Tyler Glass now. And I know we talked a little bit about this on the chat, but what do you think on Tyler Glass now? Is that somebody you take a look at?
I would if he's available and Tampa's looking to move him. Obviously, a long-term deal would be kind of like a new ownership type deal, so that's out of the question. Tyler Glass now can give you a lot of innings, but he has been subject to some injuries, and I think Tampa Bay wants to move away from that. They're all about consistency. So I mean, when he's out there, I mean, he's one of the better pitchers in the league, dude. That there's no question about it. There's no stoppage in his game. There's no slump in his game. The only thing that takes him out is injury, whether it's nagging, whether it's just arm issues, whatever. But other than looking like the ringer for the lead from the Pinky Blinders, I mean, the guy's got good stuff, and I think he would fit in good here. But what would you have to do to give up to get him? Like I'm more on board with who you were talking about in the chat, which was Shane Bieber. But Glass now, if Glass now came available, I'd take a shot at him, dude. I really would.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Glass now obviously has had some solid seasons, but he's still a career 4 ERA pitcher.
True.
Once again, we're talking about a guy who has injuries. We're talking about a guy who admitted to things like spider tag being beneficial because he said, well, guys are going to get injured if they don't use spider tag because then they have to get a different grip of the ball. Then they get rid of spider tag and he immediately gets injured. So obviously there was truth to what he said, but can he even pitch without spider tag? Oh, well, Fernando, he had a 1.35 ERA. Yeah, well, he pitched 6 innings. So
yeah,
in 2 games.
I mean, it goes back to me. The Pirates, when they had all these guys, and the name escapes me. The one that went to they had Jameson Taillon. Obviously, he's in New York. The pitcher that went to the Padres.
Musgrove?
Musgrove. Yeah, Glass now. These guys are good, solid pitchers, and change of scenery helped them out. With him, saying what he said and then coming up with injury, that's concerning. But I mean, let's just say, it's kind of hard to say, Tampa's not in that position where they're Colorado or they're Pittsburgh to where they're going to be sucking and they're going to be looking to move the guy. Now they might move him for the right price and might right players now, considering it's the off season, but once they get going, the Glass Now sweepstakes are going to be gone, I think, because that's a team that's the American League East. They're going to be contending. And so if you're going to make a move on a guy like that, you'd have to do it this offseason. You have to do it during the winter meetings. So you'd have to trust that that what you're getting back and what you're giving up is going to be equal or better value for you, and you got to trust that Glass now is going to turn it around from last year, and that's a big question mark. I know, like you said, Angel fans are very warm on that, but again, what are you going to give up, and can you trust him? You don't want to get into an albatross to where you gave up too much and you don't get nothing back.
Yeah, I mean, if it's up to me, there's really almost no move that I'd. Well, I mean, if we're talking about like a Gio or Shella kind of move where we give up like somebody low in the minors for Tyler Glass now, then sure. But the Rays aren't going to do that. They're going to want some return for him. So I just don't think the return will be worth it. If we're going to give up guys like you know Ty Bush, Luis Rengifo, and Jose Suarez to get Tyler Glass now, I'm going to say no, because that's the kind of package you're going to need.
Yep.
You're going to need a guy who's right on the cusp, like Ty Bush, a guy who's been there and kind of done that, like Luis Rengifo, and a guy who just needs more reps to become really dominant, like Jose Suarez. If I'm going to trade those three guys, I want somebody who's more consistent, somebody who's not as injured, somebody who doesn't have a career 4 ERA. So, yeah, Glasnow is a name that's been thrown around a lot, but I'm going to have to say no. For realistically, what I'm going to have to trade to get him, it's not worth it. I don't think we're going to get what we want out of him.
I agree all the way, Fernando, because does it fit the recent three moves that we just talked about, bro? It doesn't. Like, to me, this is high risk, um, possibly high or low reward. What we've done recently with these three pickups is low risk, high reward. We're not throwing a lot on the table to get these players in here. Like we've already discussed, they're improved me contracts. We didn't give much up to get these guys or pay too much to get the Anderson. Now it's they've got Anderson's got the resume. These other guys got the resume. It's a safer pickup, and Glass now doesn't fit those molds.
Yeah, so there'll definitely be some more trades that happen. Perry's definitely not done. Maybe you get a couple other bullpen arms. I mean, they did sign two bullpen pieces who are, who have been successful in the past, and they're trying to regain form. But yeah, that's just kind of what you have to do with the bullpen. I mean, Jonathan Holder was one of the guys, and then Chris Davensky. So, both haven't exactly been. Oh, and sorry, also Jacob Webb. So all three of those guys haven't exactly been dominant recently, but you're giving them minor league contracts. You're telling them to show up to spring training. Hopefully one of those guys hits, and even if only one of them hits, then hey, that's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not. And again, pitching is not the issue. We got a lot of arms that are going to be pushing these veterans that are left on the roster or that we bring in. It's going to be a vice versa. The veterans are going to try to hold their spot and make a spot on the roster, while these young kids are going to try to prove themselves and get up there. And I think it's a good way for Perry to keep both sides very motivated to stay on the roster and pitch their way into a role, because that's what every bullpen pitcher wants, is a role, an established role. And with right now not knowing if we're going to go out there and get an established closer off the free agent market or if we're going to trade for one, now everyone's mindset right now is that could be mine if I just do this, this, and this. And you got certain guys that are going to be battling for that spot. So I think it's healthy as of right now. And obviously, like you said, there's more trades to come. There's more free agency signings. So we'll see what this roster looks like. But from what they've done so far, it's definitely different from what we've seen in the past. And I like it. I'm very optimistic about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it perfectly. I don't think that I'm trying to think if there's any real like other rumors that I've heard. Like I know like Glasnow is the one that's been throwing around. I know you have some people who are still clamoring for a catcher, but I think they're happy with Logan O'Hoppe and hopefully giving him more of a role this year. Obviously, they still have Stassi. Walsh and Fletcher, their names have been thrown around as guys who aren't who the organization isn't sold on. I know Perry would be happier with like a guy like Fletcher coming off the bench. Maybe that's because of a health thing. Who knows?
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, you're a couple of depth pieces away. I think maybe you reach back out to a guy like a Matt Duffy. Maybe you get him back on a 1 year deal again, just as a depth piece. I didn't hate what we saw out of him when he was playing. I think if he's coming off your bench, it's not that bad. He has experience. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. Time will tell. Overall, I like these three moves. I like the minor league signings for the bullpen guys. Give those guys an opportunity. I'm still not fully satisfied, but it's nice to be in a situation where the Angels are one of the most active teams so far during the offseason.
Yeah. And like you said, time will tell when we get into the winter meetings if this is going to continue. I just have seen a couple seasons go where the Angels started out with a couple big splashes and then they were just done and they didn't do anything at all. I mean, up until spring training, you just had minor little moves here and there. So I will be, watching exactly what Perry does moving forward. I would love to see a few more trades for depth, obviously, like you said. And the closer, closer role, how that's that going to be? I mean, idealistically, I'd like a fearful closer coming out of the pen. That was one of the things I looked forward to at the start of the season was knowing that we had a back end of the bullpen that looked pretty dominant with Tapera and Loop and Iglesias. But obviously has changed now. So not having a flamethrower back there, who's going to get the job? I know you mentioned Tapera and Loop could probably start out, and then we'll see if Herget can work his way in there. But there's some roster spots to be filled. I know they got Wallach back. I know he's not going to take the job from Stassi. They're paying him too much. It's just, man, if O'Hoppe comes out and has a great spring training, I can't see them just giving Stassi the ball. To me, he's not our catcher, man. He's just not our catcher.
I think Stassi's your opening day catcher, especially because Otani's probably your opening day starter.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, they Otani really likes Stassi. But I do think that by the end of the season, Logan O'Hoppe is your starting catcher. He's obviously the future. That's kind of the hope.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there will be at least one big trade made by the Angels. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know if that's for a big back end of the rotation guy, or maybe it's for an ace B. Because you obviously have Otani, so maybe they are going to try to get a guy like a Shane Bieber, a Glasnow, whoever that big name is. Maybe it's a shortstop. Maybe it's a first baseman. Who knows? But the Angels will make one more big trade this offseason. I think you're going to see one of those names: Suarez, Adele, Kai Bush, Jaime Barria. You're going to see one of those guys traded. It's going to be Luis Rengifo. One of those guys is going to go with a package, and they're going to get somebody who's jaw dropping, like, whoa, the Angels got him. That's my bold prediction.
If it is, I'd like to see Canning and even Rodriguez in that mix. No Bush. I really want to see him in an Angel uniform get the opportunity. I mean, I know you have to throw it out there because it makes sense. But being greedy and just being sentimental, I would love to keep him on the roster and let him start his Angel career, much like Sandoval did, and throw, because he just, again, he looks like the prototypical scary left-handed pitcher, man, and he's got great stuff. I'd hate to lose him unless we're getting a really good haul with proven players, not just one guy. If he's part of a big package, then I don't want to do it. That's just me being selfish. It's just,
Well, The good news is that this organization is really good at valuing guys who, have potential, like David McKinnon.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's one of those moves that they made. I'm like, God, dude, that's gonna bite us. I mean, he went to Oakland, so he's gonna, especially now, hearing like, well, they're not sold on Walsh. Oh, okay, so maybe we should have kept McKinnon. You know, did he only had a sip of coffee? Yeah, he didn't do much in a sip of coffee, but it was his first time up in the majors. Very seldom do players come up and immediately take the world by storm in the majors. It's very rare that happens. Not even Mike Trout did that.
That was very disappointing, and I'm glad you brought him up because McKinnon was like, okay, he started out hot. He did start out hot. He hit the ball, and then when the pitchers got a couple, um, you know, uh, what is it called? When they got the book on him a little bit, and he got a few major league bats, they started to bust him in and stuff. But the one thing he did do, he did adjust and start working walks, and he was taking pitchers deep into counts, maybe striking out every now and then, but he would work walks. I felt that if he got more playing time, he could have worked back into getting hits, and he would have adjusted back to the pitchers. Like the pitchers adjusted to him. I think he's that kind of player that he's focused enough. He'll make the subtle changes to change up his at bats and get a little smarter in the box. So yeah, I'm with you. I think they gave him not enough time to maturate up here, and they kind of rushed him out, which it did not make sense then. It does not make sense now because the type of hitter that the Angels are looking for, he fit the mold as far as being a patient hitter in this new lineup with the new hitting coach.
I'll say this about McKinnon. Oh, by the way, he's a free agent right now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He was released by Oakland. I'll say this. As a minor leaguer, he has a career 412 on base percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you want about a guy, maybe his batting average doesn't translate once he gets to the majors. But one thing that normally always translates is a guy's ability to get on base. If you can get on base via walks in the minors, chances are you're going to be able to do the same thing in the majors because you have a good eye, you have good patience. And most of the time, that will eventually translate to a guy getting hits. I mean, he's a 294 hitter in the minors. And I understand that's not great, but his last two seasons, with the Trash Pandas in 2021 and then last year with the Bees, we saw a guy who was having a pretty easy time getting on base via the hit and via the walk. So, maybe he's a guy you also think about bringing back along with Jonathan Diaz because, they have potential. And these are the kind of guys that you really need to ride the wave with because they've been there, they've been in the organization, they know the Angel way, and that cannot be overstated enough. How important it is for guys to come up in your organization, to come up with the same group of players, to learn how to play with the same group of players. That way, when the time comes for them to be productive major league players, they're all kind of together because they've all more or less come up together, and they know what it's like to win together because they've already done it in the minors.
Yeah, exactly. And he's only 28 years old. I think he deserves a shot. Whether it's going to be with us or not, that remains to be seen. Most likely not. But all things like you said, if perfect world to get him back, and they get Diaz back. But we'll have to see, man. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on where this guy goes. I would like to see him succeed, even if it's not in an Angel uniform. As long as it's not a Dodger uniform, I could care less, but I would like to see him succeed. He's a nice guy. We talked to him. I wish only the best for him. So we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's it for me, man.
Yeah, that's it for me too. I mean, I like the move so far. Obviously, I don't think Perry's done. We've both said that about 20 times this episode, but that's kind of all you can say on episodes like this. We're obviously not even at the midway point of the offseason. We haven't hit the winter meetings yet, so we'll see what happens. But I like these moves early on, and I'm excited to see what Perry can cook.
Exactly. And real quick, getting back to what you said earlier to start the show, which we should be saying, leave a 5-star anywhere you listen to this podcast or give a like and share to the YouTube if you're watching the visual right now. And as far as Heaty's concerned, we've got a lot of stuff coming up on the go around. We're going to be doing player profiles. We're going to be doing seasons. Talking about random Angel stuff that's in the news. So we'll still be here as we've always been. Like as far as an off season form of news and notes for your Angels.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. And we can't wait for that new season to turn around. It just feels like as soon as football and the Super Bowl are over, I think that's when a lot of people flip the script and they're like, okay, it's baseball time. We're almost at freaking spring training. Pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting soon. That's when I think it gets heavy and it gets real. It gets real again for the baseball fan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready at the point where I'm ready for baseball to start again. I mean, that's primarily what I care about throughout the entire season, sports wise. I know you're a football guy. Randy's a football guy. Normally he's checked out by now with the Jets, but the Jets are doing well, so he's still all in on the Jets.
Yeah, he sure is. I'd be
Sadly,
checked
though,
out myself.
unfortunately, their entire division's doing well, so they're almost in fourth place.
Boy, he's gonna hate you for that. But yeah, there's obviously football grabs you. Not as much basketball anymore, so I can care less about that. But yeah, I need the football season to get me through because there's those like I said, I don't follow basketball like I used to. So I'll watch it through the Super Bowl, and then right away I'm just I'm ready to go. I know you're baseball 362, and that's kudos to you. And I'll follow it and everything, but I know you're waiting for the summer months to kick in and spring training and all that, dude. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I guess I'll like periodically check in on hockey. I've done a better job this year because I've been able to watch almost all the Coyotes games
Mhm.
because of ESPN Plus and all that. And I find a Coyotes podcast that puts out episodes daily, so I've been able to keep up a little bit more, and that's kind of helped get me through the early part of the off season. But yeah, I'll definitely start itching here for that baseball crack once like Christmas is over.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's gonna flip the script around there, and then plus you're gonna have hopefully a lot of baseball news, hopefully a lot of positive Angel news. So we'll definitely see where that goes.
Crust.
Absolutely. So any final thoughts yourself?
No, thanks everyone for tuning in, and hopefully you guys had a good Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir. And go Angels.
Viva los Angelitos!